Welcome back to another mock draft. This mock draft features a couple of trades to spice things up, and I'm curious to hear what you think about them down in that comment section. This mock draft is a little bit of who I think is the best player at each pick, a little bit of who I think the team would draft, and a little bit based on recent rumors, players that are rising or falling down draft boards. There's only 3 weeks until the draft, and there still is quite a lack of consensus, so predicting things is not easy, but it is a lot of fun. And with that being said, let's jump into it. With the first overall pick, the Hawks take Alex Sarr. I don't think this is going to change on any of my mock drafts, although Zachary Ricochet has gotten some buzz for the number 1 overall pick. Also, Donovan Clingan apparently has a small chance of going number 1, as apparently the Hawks are intrigued by him, but I don't think they would take Clingan number 1 over Sarr. I think if the Hawks end up with Clingan, it's either trading for another pick in this top 10 that they could snag him with, or trading down from 1. But I do think at the end of the day, they just elect to take Alex Sarr, who is the best prospect on my board. At number 2, we have our first trade. And this trade sees the San Antonio Spurs jumping up from 4 to 2. And in return, the Washington Wizards receive the 4th pick, the 35th pick, and 2 future seconds from the Spurs. And the Spurs do this so that they can select Zachary Ricochet. Zachary Ricochet, a 6'9", 6'10", 3-and-D prospect that would fit in pretty nicely next to Wembanyama and whoever the starting point guard of the future is for the Spurs. That's a little bit of foreshadowing. We'll talk about why the Wizards made this trade in a minute. With the 3rd overall pick, the Houston Rockets select Reed Sheppard. The Rockets have a lot of players at a lot of positions. They could use some additional three-point shooting, though. I think at this pick, they're more so drafting for a specific skill more than anything. In long term, I don't think Fred VanVleet or Dillon Brooks are there, and that will ultimately open up some minutes for Reed Sheppard. You got Cam Whitmore, who looked good as a rookie, Amen Thompson, who looked good as a rookie. Jalen Green made some strides last year. So it's tough to say if Reed Sheppard can supplant one of those 3 guys and get a starting spot in this lineup long term. At the bare minimum, he provides that core with a shooter off the bench that can help space the floor for a lot of the slashers that they have. With the 4th overall pick, the Washington Wizards select Donovan Clingan, and my justification for them trading down from 2 to 4 is Donovan Clingan makes a lot of sense for them. They need a long-term center of the future. They need defense. They already have a couple of defensive wings there with Deni Avdija and Bilal Coulibaly, and I think combining Clingan with those two makes for a very formidable defensive front court. Now, they still need a star for the future offensively. They need some backcourt production, but that is certainly possible to find over the next couple years for them, especially in next year's draft, which is loaded with star power. So being able to get their center of the future, a defensive guy that's going to protect the rim, is a really good building block for the Wizards. And with Houston having Sengun, I don't think that's a Clingan destination, so that's why the Wizards traded down from 2 to 4. At number 5, we might have a little bit of a surprise, but the Detroit Pistons select Dalton Knecht out of Tennessee. I think this is the ceiling for Knecht. I think the floor is probably 13 to Sacramento. I've seen a little bit of buzz about Dalton Knecht to Detroit, and the logic is the Pistons have gotten screwed in the lottery the past couple of years, despite being the worst team in the league. They need shooting, and they need somebody that can actually come in and produce and help out that team right now, because while they're in rebuild mode, so yes, it's good to lose games, it has not paid off for them. And also the culture or aura or whatever you want to call it around that organization right now is not good. They need someone exciting that can score the ball, that can shoot the ball, to come in there and produce from day one, help lift up this organization a little bit, because it's at rock bottom right now. And that's the justification for taking a guy like Dalton Knecht, who can play off Cade Cunningham, play off Asar Thompson, who I think will progress into being a good playmaker in the league. So I like this pick at 5 for Detroit. I know Knecht's 23, but they're in a weird spot right now, and this is the type of player that they could definitely use next season. At number 6, the Charlotte Hornets select Stephon Castle. Stephon Castle wants to go play point guard. He does not want to work out for a team that already has an entrenched starting point guard. So that means he's not going to work out for Charlotte, Portland, or Memphis. However, he goes 6 here to Charlotte because he just makes a ton of sense next to LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller as a connective piece. I do think he would be given more on-ball responsibility in Charlotte than he did get last year for a UConn team that won another championship. But bare minimum, he's a really good defender. creator, and he slots in perfectly into that shooting guard role next to Miller and Ball. And I think Charlotte also needs a guy with a winning pedigree, a guy that's going to come in, be a dog, play some defense, and that's what Stephon Castle is. At 7, the Portland Trailblazers select Matas Buzelis, a combo forward out of the G League Ignite, and Portland basically could go for anything but a guard here. They're pretty set at the guard position, so being able to get a guy that has good feel, can handle the ball, shot well before this past season for the G League Ignite, is a pretty decent athlete, just needs to get stronger, and also impressed me defensively last year. There's a lot to like with Matas Buzelis, and he has one of the highest upsides in this class if every trait of his can pan out. If he can become a guy that can knock down threes and then make plays off the dribble, make passes off the dribble, as well as provide some solid defensive ability, that's probably a starter in the league, and being able to get that here at 7 would be a great get for Portland. At 8, we have another trade, and this trade involves the San Antonio Spurs trading for Trae Young. Spurs get Young, the Hawks get the 8th pick, they get their future first back from San Antonio to start this rebuild, and they get another future first alongside Keldon Johnson and Julian Champagnie for salary. And this trade makes sense for both teams because Trae Young to Wembanyama lobs might break the league, and Atlanta, in my opinion, needs to fully start their rebuild. But in order to rebuild, you have to have your future picks. You can't owe unprotected picks to another team. San Antonio owns Atlanta's picks, so if Trae Young gets traded this summer, I would be shocked if it's not to San Antonio for all those reasons. And with the 8th pick, the Atlanta Hawks select their point guard of the future in Rob Dillingham. I like Rob Dillingham next to Alex Sarr. I think Alex Sarr can clean up some of Dillingham's defensive liabilities, and then Dillingham's going to be an electric 3-level scorer in the league and is also an underrated passer and should form a pretty formidable pick and roll duo there in Atlanta to start off that rebuild. At 9, we have the Memphis Grizzlies trading out of this pick. The Memphis Grizzlies trade down from 9 to 14. The Portland Trailblazers trade up from 14 to 9. In this trade, Memphis gets the 14th pick, Robert Williams, the 3rd, and 2 future seconds, and Portland gets the number 9 pick and Derrick Rose. So, justification for this trade from Memphis' end, Donovan Clingan isn't on the board. That's the guy they want. If they can't trade up to get him, it sounds like they won't get him. So at this point, it might make sense to trade down, get a center who has had injury issues, but if he's healthy, would be a steal in this type of a trade, and Robert Williams III, a guy who arguably should have won a Defensive Player of the Year award before. And then they also get a couple of seconds. Memphis at 14 should be able to select amongst a few good centers, and in this trade for Portland, they trade up to 9 to draft somebody that they want that probably wouldn't last till 14. Also, I really like Derrick Rose as a veteran mentor to Scoot Henderson. Derrick Rose was kind of similar to Henderson coming into the league, struggled with his shot, super athletic though, but then dealt with injuries, lost some of that athleticism, but found a way to make it work in the NBA, and I think that could be a good veteran mentor to have in a 3rd string role for the Blazers. And they also duck the luxury tax in this trade as well. And with the 9th pick, the Portland Trailblazers select Cody Williams out of the University of Colorado. They just get another wing that can do multiple things like Buzelis can. Cody Williams struggled the second half of the year at Colorado with an ankle injury, did not look 100%, but certainly skilled, needs to add strength. His brother is a really good player for the Oklahoma City Thunder right now. There's a lot to like with Cody. You just hope that the low volume 3-point shooting can increase and the playmaking can continue to develop, and hopefully he can get stronger and use his body a little bit better, be a little bit more aggressive going fully downhill to the rim. Cody has some sneaky upside, and being able to get that with their 2nd pick in this lottery would be a really good get for the Blazers. At 10, the Utah Jazz select Nikola Topic. He apparently has a partially torn ACL, and I think that might cause him to slide. However, I do like him here at 10 to the Utah Jazz, who are rebranding. I like that too. Topic can come in and play next to Keontae George. Keontae George played a lot of point guard last year. I still think he's more of a combo guard, but Topic being a big point guard makes a lot of sense to take some of that responsibility off of George. Defensively, it's probably not a good fit, but at least you got one of these guards with some size, and offensively, that's an interesting duo long term. At 11, the Chicago Bulls select Tidjane Salaun out of France. He's been getting some buzz, even as high as 5. However, I still think he has some very serious flaws in his game. He's only 18 years old, he works hard. However, he has a long way to go in a lot of areas in order to become the fully realized version of himself, and he's probably multiple years away from contributing to a winning team. Chicago should probably hit the rebuild button, and if they're going to start a rebuild with an 11th pick here, it makes sense to just swing for the fences with a guy who has a lot of upside but is a long ways away from reaching it. He's basically just a lottery ticket at this point. At 12, the Oklahoma City Thunder select Tristan da Silva out of the University of Colorado. Da Silva, I think, is more likely to go outside of the lottery. However, if the board falls this way, I do like Da Silva as somebody that could come in, play right away for an OKC team that now has aspirations of contending. They were the 1 seed last year, and he can provide some shooting, some positional versatility between the 3 and the 4. Really solid playmaker, really smart player. I think he would fit in very seamlessly there in OKC, and he would be somebody that could help them, hopefully, for their sake, contend next year. At 13, the Sacramento Kings select Ron Holland, and I think this is the floor for Holland. The Kings need to get better defensively, and being able to get a guy like Holland who should come in and contribute on that end right away is a very intriguing get for them. I don't know how much Holland could play for this team right away, but they do have some salary cap questions coming up this offseason. Malik Monk is probably going to leave. They could use some wing depth as well, so that's why I like Holland here at 13 to Sacramento. At 14, the Memphis Grizzlies select Ware. As I said earlier, they trade down from 9 to 14 knowing that there's going to be multiple good centers on the board, and they go with the one that can shoot. This Memphis Grizzlies team has struggled shooting the ball the past couple years. They've been really good defensively. They get Robert Williams III, a guy who can contribute to that defense, and then they get Ware, a center that can shoot the 3 ball, has legitimate size, measured very well at the combine. Does have motor questions, but at the very least should be a good lob target for Ja. He could be a guy that spaces the floor. Volume wasn't super impressive at Indiana, but he knocked down a good percentage of threes that he took, which is a good starting point, and I do like Ware 14 here to Memphis. At 15, the Miami Heat select Jared McCain out of the University of Duke. They get maybe their long-term starting point guard of the future, somebody that I like playing right away, especially with his fit next to Jimmy Butler. Butler being a big point guard, Jared McCain being a smaller combo guard. I always like that combination for a guy coming into the league that might have some on-ball ability, however, might not be ready to fully show it. McCain's going to be an interesting player to watch. I think he has a really high floor as a shooter, as a competitor, as a guy who rebounds, as a guy who should be able to play some okay defense. However, his lack of size might hurt him on that end. But if he can become somebody that can make plays off the dribble and create his own shot, then he has some serious upside. And I think Miami would be one of the best situations to help him realize that upside. At 16, the Philadelphia 76ers select Jalen Tyson out of the University of California. The Sixers need to get a cheap role player who can play for them next season, as they are chasing cap space this offseason to go after Paul George or someone else. The problem with chasing cap space is they have a bunch of free agents. That's why they have that cap space in the first place, and they're probably going to have to let a few of them walk, meaning that if they get a guy like Paul George, they may have some depth issues next year. So it's good for them to get a guy in Jalen Tyson, who was a multi-year college player, a little bit more NBA ready than some other options on the board, can play the 2 or the 3, can handle the ball a little bit, can shoot a little bit, can play some okay defense, can attack off the dribble, decent athlete, a lot of different traits where I could see him fitting into a couple different roles depending on what a team needs. I think that makes a ton of sense for the 76ers. At 17, the Lakers draft Bronny James, and it's LeBron's son, so they want to keep LeBron. They draft Bronny. Bronny's not ready to play the next 2-3 years. If he wasn't LeBron's son, he would not be drafted here. However, he is LeBron's son, so he goes 17. At 18, the Orlando Magic select Jacoby Walter out of Baylor. I've been struggling with Jacoby Walter's draft range. I think a great fit for him is Sacramento at 13. However, if he doesn't go there, I could see him falling to this pick or even later in the draft. The Magic, I would love Jared McCain for, but he went 15 to Miami. So instead, they take another shooter, one with a little bit more size, another one that has some creation questions, but the Magic don't need a creator here. They need somebody that can knock down shots, especially at a guard spot, and that's Jacoby Walter. At 19, the Toronto Raptors select Zach Edey Edey out of Purdue, the 7'4" big man coming off back-to-back years winning College Player of the Year, stays in his home country of Canada. And while I have serious questions about his foot speed on the defensive end, I think he might be somebody that gets played off the floor in the future on that side of the ball. Offensively, he should be a true difference maker from day one with his size and ability to finish inside the paint. And he's also not a guy you can just send to the free throw line. He shot above 70% from there last year. He's a unique player. I think he's going to be a really good backup center long term. But if he can move his feet a little bit better and guard in space, then he's probably a starting center. This is the range where it makes sense to gamble on that. I don't agree with some of the mock drafts and big boards that have him going in the lottery, but 19 is about the start of his range here at Toronto. At 20, the Cleveland Cavaliers are in a weird position this offseason. Darius Garland wants a trade if Donovan Mitchell signs an extension. Jared Allen might be traded. According to reports, he could have played in the playoffs, but didn't play through pain. Just weird stuff going on in Cleveland, so I don't even know what to do with this pick for them. But I'm going to take a player that I have near the top of my board at this point, and that is Pacome Daizer out of France. He's risen up into being a first-round prospect right now. He's listed at 6'9". I think he's probably closer to 6'7". I'm interested to see what his measurements look like. But he's a guy that can shoot the ball, very pretty jumper, has flashes of off-the-dribble creation, playmaking, moves pretty well. And that's an intriguing complement of traits for a player of his size that maybe long-term, if everything pans out right, could be their starting small forward. Not sure, but Daizer, good player, goes 20. At 21, the New Orleans Pelicans select Deron Holmes II out of the University of Dayton. Apparently, Deron Holmes has a promise from someone and has shut down all his future workouts. He's not going to work out anymore. Now begins the game of us trying to guess who gave him that promise. I think it might be as high as OKC at 12, but I think this spot makes a little bit more sense at 21. Deron Holmes is a slightly undersized center, but I think he can play that spot. He can shoot the 3-ball, handle the ball a little bit, make plays off the dribble, and I like that skill set at the center spot next to Zion Williamson. Given Zion's a power forward that dominates on the interior, being able to space the floor for him at the center spot is a really good idea. It forces the opposing center to either help down on Zion and give up open threes to a guy that can shoot the ball, or it gives Zion more space to do what he does best. It's a really good compliment. The Pelicans haven't really had that with Jonas Valanciunas. He can knock down threes, but he's not a true floor spacer. Deron Holmes, I think, could be that, and I think this could be his promise. At 22, the Phoenix Suns select Devin Carter. They need a point guard. They need defense. Devin Carter provides both of that, and made shots last year, improved his three-point shot, and could come in right away and maybe even start for this Phoenix team that is desperate for depth and desperate for a point guard. At 23, the Milwaukee Bucks select Baylor Shireman. And this is simply a fit pick. Shireman should be able to play right away as somebody that can shoot, make the right play, pass the ball a little bit. He's not going to be a positive defensively by any means, but the Bucks need more shooting off the bench, a little bit more playmaking off the bench, and Shireman provides that at the shooting guard or small forward position and would likely play right away for the Bucks. At 24, the New York Knicks select Missi. Isaiah Hartenstein might be gone this summer. Mitchell Robinson is injury prone. So drafting a center here and somebody that might be able to play right away in Missi is a pick that makes a lot of sense. He's athletic, he can block shots, he's a lob target. Those traits tend to translate pretty well to the league. I think he would be a good pick and roll partner for Jalen Brunson. And the Knicks could feel a little bit better going into an offseason of uncertainty at the center position with Missi on board. At 25, the New York Knicks select Isaiah Collier, who has slipped to 25. It's hard to figure out where he's going to go this year. I'm higher on him than this. However, there was a lot of picks before this with teams that needed a more win-now player or teams that simply did not need a point guard. The Knicks certainly don't need a point guard with Jalen Brunson. However, they have a lot of depth at a lot of positions. So just taking the best player on the board, I think makes a lot of sense. And that at this point is Collier. At 26, the Washington Wizards select Carrington out of Pittsburgh. The Wizards are in a rough spot at the point guard position, and Carrington is the best point guard on the board and also might have the most most upside out of any player left on the board as well. He projects as a guy that could be a 3-level scorer, shifty with the ball, good shooter off the dribble, didn't shoot the best percentages, but I really like the way that he gets to his shots. I like his pace. I like a lot of traits within his game. I think he's a very underrated prospect at this point, and I think he'd be a steal here at 26 to Washington. At 27, the Minnesota Timberwolves select Nikola Jurisic, who had a really good draft combine, has legitimate wing size and can shoot the ball, good passing feel, and projects as a guy that might not come over right away, but the Timberwolves are set at a lot of positions. They don't need somebody to come in and play right away, and I think Jurisic is an intriguing player for them to take. At 28, the Denver Nuggets select Jonathan Mogbo out of San Francisco. Mogbo's been rising up draft boards. There's a chance he could go at the back end of the first round. He can handle the ball, he can make plays, pass as well, plays really good defense. Now I like the idea of bringing Mogbo behind Jokic because you can kind of keep the system the same. You can run some of the stuff you run through Jokic through Mogbo with a bench lineup. Now Mogbo is not the shooter that Jokic is. If he could become a shooter, it would make him maybe a top 10, top 5 prospect from this draft because he has the passing, he has the handle, he has the defense, he has the wingspan, and I would love him for this Nuggets team. At 29, the Utah Jazz are going to swing for upside with Keyshawn George, who seems to be falling a little bit down draft boards. He still has good size for a wing with the ability to handle, pass, and shoot. There's question marks about his ability to create separation at the next level. He also needs to add a lot of strength. His strength and athleticism might be what holds him back in the league, but I like that he can shoot, I like that he can pass, and I like that he can do it while being tall enough to play a small forward position. And at 30, the Boston Celtics select Kyle Filipowski, who falls to the last pick in the first round. Al Horford's going to retire soon, and Filipowski offensively possesses some similar traits to Al Horford. I don't think he's anywhere near the defensive piece that Horford is, but I do think he could come into Boston and maybe earn a backup spot in the next couple of years. I'm not a fan of Filipowski's game and how it translates to the NBA. I don't trust his three-point shot. I don't trust him defensively at either the center or power forward position. I think a lot of the ways that he scored the ball in college isn't going to easily translate to the NBA. So that's why I have him falling down here to 30 to Boston, who I think would be a pretty good fit for him. Here's my second round. Feel free to check out these picks while I wrap up this video. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you think about any of the picks in this mock draft down in the comment section below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. We'll have a live draft watch party on June 26th and June 27th for both rounds of the NBA draft. You don't want to miss that. And with that being said, I'm out of here. I'll catch you next time. Until then, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.